The ship wasn't supposed to be there. It was declared sunk in 1943. Every record said so. But I stood on its deck last night, barefoot, salt wind cutting through me, hearing my own voice calling from below the hull. I know how it sounds, but please, just listen before you decide I'm lying. It was 2:37 a.m. when I heard it. The sound that shouldn't exist. An SOS signal from a ship that sank more than 80 years ago. You ever feel like the past sometimes calls out to you? Not metaphorically, but literally, like it has your name on its lips? That night, it was the fog that woke me. Thick, suffocating fog pressing against my windows like it wanted in. The air was heavy with static. My old transceiver, a battered Marconi 88A, started crackling even though I hadn't touched it in months. At first, I thought it was interference from a nearby fishing boat, but then I heard it. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, SOS, clear as day, followed by a voice, a woman's voice, faint, trembling, half swallowed by static. This is the Morwenna. We're taking water. Please, anyone, respond. The SS Morwenna. I froze. That name shouldn't exist anymore. See, I know every ship that's gone down within 100 nautical miles of this coast. I used to work search and rescue before they made sure I'd never wear the uniform again. Let's just say I missed something, a call, and people died for it. But that night, when I heard her voice, the guilt kicked back like a tide. I told myself it was a hoax, maybe some pirate transmission. Still, I found myself scribbling down the coordinates that flashed faintly through the static. Latitude 57:11 N. Longitude 542 W. That's right off the Ormhead Shoals. An empty stretch of freezing sea where no ships sail anymore. I told myself I'd just check it out, just to be sure. By dawn, I was driving north along the coast, the radio still hissing beside me. Every few minutes the signal would come and go, weaker each time, as if someone was drowning and trying to scream through the waves. The fog thickened the closer I got to the shore. You couldn't see 10 feet ahead, just white walls of mist and the faint glint of salt on my windshield. When I reached the cliffs, the signal died completely. Then, silence. No waves, no birds, no wind, just nothing. And then I saw it. A dark silhouette drifting just beyond the rocks. A massive cargo ship sitting unnaturally still on mirror-flat water. No lights except one. A dim, flickering glow deep below deck, like a lantern caught in breath. I don't remember getting out of the car. I just remember standing at the water's edge. Salt spray cold against my face. My heart beating like it was trying to warn me. The name on the hull was barely visible. Letters peeled and rusted. SS Morwenna. But the paint looked fresh. That's when I started to doubt myself. Rust and freshness don't coexist. Wood doesn't rot and gleam at the same time. Yet it did. I should have left, but I didn't. I found a small dinghy beached nearby, half buried in sand, like it had been waiting. I pushed it into the water and rowed toward the Morwenna. Every stroke echoed, swallowed by fog. Halfway there, I noticed something strange. No tide, no current. The sea was dead still like glass. When my oars finally hit metal, I looked up. The ship loomed above me, vast and silent, like a cliff carved from night. I climbed the rope ladder, the rungs slick with algae, and, I swear, warm. The deck groaned under my weight, but not with decay. It felt alive, and that's when I smelled it. Engine oil, coffee, smoke, fresh, not 80 years old. I whispered into the fog. Hello? Anyone aboard? No answer. Just the low creak of metal and the hum of machinery somewhere below. I stepped carefully, flashlight in hand. Every footstep echoed back slightly out of sync. like the ship was mocking my rhythm. The paint on the railings peeled away in my fingers, yet underneath was polished steel. The contradiction made my head spin, and then the radio in my bag crackled again. Please, water rising, help! The same woman's voice, close, too close. I spun around, expecting to see her, but there was no one, just the empty deck and fog pressing in like walls. That's when I realized something that still chills me. The voice wasn't coming from my radio, it was coming through the ship itself. Every metal surface seemed to vibrate faintly, like it was whispering her words back to me. I forced myself toward the only light, a narrow stairway leading below deck. Each step creaked but felt newly oiled. I could smell the sea, the iron, the faint scent of wet hair and perfume. Impossible, but familiar somehow. At the bottom of the stairs was a small cabin with an old radio set still humming, its dials glowing amber. The microphone was off the hook, and beside it, a mug of coffee, steam still rising. That's when the ship moved, just slightly. A groan, a lurch, as if adjusting its weight. I stumbled, gripping the desk, and saw something under the glass panel on the wall. The ship's logbook. The last entry was neat. Ink not yet faded. Date: October 10th, 1943. Entry: Elias Ward on duty. Signal stable. Weather calm. My name, not someone else's, mine. I froze. For a second, I thought maybe it was another Elias. A coincidence. But then I saw the signature. It was my handwriting. That's impossible. The radio hissed again, and her voice came through. Quieter this time, almost gentle. Elias, you came back. I dropped the mic. The room went dark except for that single amber light flickering on the wall. And then I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming from the corridor outside the cabin. I told myself. I was imagining it. Just the creaking hull, the shifting tide, except there was no tide. I turned off my flashlight, held my breath, and listened. The footsteps stopped. Right outside the door, Elias, stay with us. Her voice was inside the room now. The walls seemed to breathe. The floor trembled slightly. The ship itself sounded alive, awake, and then silence. I blinked, and the light went out completely. In the blackness, I swear I heard something whisper, not through the radio this time, but directly into my ear. You never left. When I opened my eyes, the fog was gone, but the ship hadn't moved. It was like time itself was waiting for me to wake up. I sat up slowly, every muscle stiff, my clothes damp with seawater that shouldn't have been there. The deck around me looked different, cleaner. The rust was gone, the wood dry and varnished. For a second, I thought maybe I had hallucinated everything. The logbook, the voice, the footprints. Maybe I had sleepwalked onto an old wreck and dreamed the rest. But then I saw it. My name, still written on my hand in faded ink. I tried to wash it off with seawater, but the letters just smeared deeper, like the ink wanted to stay. The sky was an unbroken sheet of grey. No sun, no sound. The sea stretched flat in every direction like liquid metal. I should have been terrified. But honestly, part of me felt calm. Like the guilt that had gnawed at me for years was suddenly quiet. Maybe this was redemption. Maybe the sea was giving me one last chance to make it right. I went below deck again. The stairs creaked, and with each step, the air grew warmer. Too warm. Almost humid. The smell of engine oil was stronger now, mixed with something sweet. Perfume, maybe. The passageways were narrow and perfectly clean. The brass fittings polished. The whole ship looked freshly maintained. even though its name had been carved into maritime graves decades ago. I reached the same cabin, the radio room. The coffee cup was gone, the logbook missing. But in their place was something new. A photograph, tucked neatly beneath a cracked glass paperweight. 5 people, all wearing naval uniforms, 4 of them smiling. The 5th, me, standing at the end of the row, unsmiling, eyes fixed on the camera like I knew something terrible was about to happen. The back of the photo was dated October 10th, 1943. The same date in the log. I tried to laugh, but it came out dry, brittle. "Someone's screwing with me," I said to no one. My voice sounded strange in that room, like it didn't belong to me. That's when the radio flickered back to life. "Anyone receiving, please." The Morwenna were flooding. Same voice, same desperation. Only this time it was crystal clear. "Elias, do you copy?" I froze. She said my name again. My throat went dry. "Who is this?" I managed. "We can't reach shore. The engines. Elias, please. You promised you wouldn't leave again." "Leave again?" I pressed the transmit button hard. "Who are you?" Static. Then, faint sobbing. "You said you'd come back." Before the water reached the radio room. Something inside me broke then. That voice. Soft. Trembling. It wasn't just a stranger's. It was familiar. I don't know how long I sat there, listening to the static breathe in and out like waves. I could almost hear her whispering my name between the bursts. Finally, I tore myself away and moved deeper below deck. The corridors twisted like veins, steel walls sweating condensation, pipes humming low. I passed rows of cabins, some doors open, some closed. The open ones had beds neatly made, lockers organized, boots placed in tidy pairs, like the crew had just stepped out moments ago. But the deeper I went, the more things didn't make sense. Condensation dripped upward. The electric bulbs buzzed with no power source. And in one hallway, my own shadow moved half a second late. I kept telling myself I was just tired, delirious, dehydrated. But when I stopped walking, I could still hear footsteps behind me. Slow, careful, in perfect rhythm with my breathing. I spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty, stretching endlessly in both directions. Still I called out, "Hello? Anyone alive?" A pause. Then faintly, "Elias?" It was a whisper from the far end of the corridor. Feminine. Uncertain. I lifted my flashlight. The beam cut through fog that wasn't there a second ago. For a moment I thought I saw someone. A figure in uniform, hair tied back, standing just beyond the reach of light. "Wait!" I shouted, stepping forward. The beam flickered. The figure was gone. But the floor was wet where she'd been standing. Fresh footprints, small, bare, leading toward the engine room. I followed. I don't know why. Curiosity, guilt, something deeper. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't. The engine room door was half open, and the hum inside was deep enough to make my ribs vibrate. The machines looked brand new, spotless, whirring steadily. And then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The gauges were moving backward. RPM, temperature, pressure, all running in reverse. The moment I stepped inside, the humming stopped, dead silent. Then, a voice behind me. "You shouldn't be here yet." I turned. No one. But there was movement reflected in the glass of a control panel. A silhouette right behind me, head tilted slightly, smiling. When I spun around, the reflection stayed for a second longer before fading like smoke. That's when the engine lights flickered. and the radio voice returned, this time through the entire ship, echoing through the vents, metallic and distorted. Elias Ward. Radio officer, respond. It sounded like an announcement being made over an intercom, but the tone wasn't pleading anymore. It was commanding. I stumbled backward. Who's doing this? I shouted. I'm not part of this crew. The walls groaned. The ship seemed to inhale. Then faintly, in the same calm, authoritative voice, all crew accounted for. Proceed to your station, Officer Ward. That was the captain's voice. I recognized it, but that's impossible. He died before I was born. My flashlight began to dim. The temperature dropped fast. My breath visible now in front of me. I backed up toward the door, but it had shut itself. In the pitch black, I could hear dozens of faint noises, footsteps above, murmurs in the corridor, the metallic rhythm of Morse code tapping itself somewhere far away. I started whispering to myself, "It's not real. None of this is real." But the moment I said it, the ship answered, tapping the same phrase back to me in Morse, "Not real." I dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, beams spinning wildly, slicing across the walls. For a split second I saw them, the crew, dozens of them, standing still, dripping wet, eyes wide open, unblinking, and then they were gone. The flashlight went out. The darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, I could hear only my own heartbeat, fast, ragged. Then the radio crackled again, just above a whisper. "You remember now, don't you, Elias?" I wanted to say no, to deny it, but my voice wouldn't come, because deep down, I did remember something. A storm, a signal, a decision I never made. The ship creaked, a low, almost human groan, and I felt the faint vibration of engines starting up beneath my feet. The Morwenna was waking. I thought I was leaving the ship, but every hallway led me back to the same door, the radio room. I don't know how long I'd been walking. Minutes, hours, maybe days. The corridors kept folding into themselves, repeating like a looping dream. I'd mark a wall with a scratch of my knife, only to find the same mark 2 turns later, deeper, older. That red light followed me everywhere. Not light exactly, more like a heartbeat pulsing through the metal. I started to realize the ship wasn't illuminated by something. It was alive with it. When I finally reached the radio room again, it wasn't the same. The equipment had changed. The dials gleamed. The air smelled of ozone and fresh paint. The only constant was that photograph. The crew lined up in uniform. But this time, there was one difference. There were 6 people now. A 6th figure had appeared, standing just behind the others, blurry but familiar. My face again, only older, and beneath it, scrawled in wet ink, was a new caption. Final crew list, complete. My knees almost gave out. I stumbled to the desk and found the ship's manifest lying open. Thick paper, bound in cracked leather. The ink shimmered like it had been written moments ago. I read down the names. Every line struck through in red ink. Captain Harlan Tate, deceased Elt. Irene Markham, deceased engineer Cole Dempsey. Deceased radio man. Henry Shaw, deceased medic. T. Alvarez, deceased. And then at the bottom, Elias Ward. Space left blank. My name, unmarked. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I whispered, "No, no, this isn't..." But the words stuck in my throat. My voice didn't sound human anymore. The air thickened. The hum of the ship deepened until it felt like it was inside my skull. The floor vibrated faintly beneath my boots. Steady, rhythmic, like a pulse. And then, from somewhere far below, I heard voices, not whispers this time, singing, a low, mournful hymn echoing up through the steel. I followed it, one trembling hand dragging along the wall. The metal was slick, not with water, but something warm. The deeper I went, the more the ship seemed to change around me. Walls bending, floors sloping at impossible angles. I swear I saw doorways that breathed. At the end of the passage, I found the mess hall, or what was left of it. Tables overturned, plates shattered, a clock frozen at 2:37 a.m. The same minute I'd heard the SOS. On one table lay a captain's log, half open, pages soaked in salt water. I flipped through it. Every entry was routine. Weather, coordinates, engine maintenance, until the last page. We've lost contact with shore. The fog is moving faster than the wind. Crew reporting voices below deck. Ward insists he can fix the signal. I trust him. I stopped reading. I trust him. I dropped the book. The hymn below deck stopped. Silence again. That's when I heard the tapping. Soft at first, then faster. Sharp, deliberate Morse code. I recognized it immediately. I'd been a radio officer long enough to read it like a second language. T-A-P, pause. T-A-P-E-L-I-A-S. Then again. Louder. E-L-I-A-S. It was coming from the floor beneath me. I crouched, pressing my ear to the steel. There it was, tapping from under the mess hall, echoing through the hull. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer, just another message, D-O-W-N, and then B-E-L-O-W. I should have run, but I didn't, because somewhere inside I wanted to know. I needed to know. The stairs to the cargo hold felt endless. With each step the air grew heavier, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged. The humming returned, louder, rising like a heartbeat in my ears. At the bottom was a single steel door, no handle, just a wheel lock. A faint orange glow bled from the seam. I turned the wheel. The metal burned cold under my palms. When the door opened, the smell hit me. Salt, rot, and something chemical. Inside was a cavernous room filled with water waist deep, reflecting that strange orange light. Floating across it were papers, hundreds, maybe thousands, all stamped with the ship's insignia. The manifest, copies upon copies, each with the same list of names, and each one ending with mine, uncrossed, waiting. The water rippled as if something beneath it shifted. I shone my flashlight down and saw faces, pale, bloated, open-eyed, staring up from below the surface. Not corpses, reflections. My reflection multiplied 100-fold, each one whispering soundlessly. Then a voice, not from the radio this time, from the water. "You can't log the living until they've drowned." I stumbled back, slipping, splashing cold water over myself. My flashlight dropped, beams spinning wildly over the walls. Where I saw it, the same photograph, nailed in rows, hundreds of copies, each one darker, the faces fading except mine, which grew clearer in every print. I screamed, or maybe I thought I did. The sound didn't leave my throat. Instead, another sound filled the room. A low rumble, like a storm building inside the hull. The water began to churn. The faces beneath the surface turned upward, mouths opening in unison. And through the chaos, a single calm voice echoed from above. The captain again. All souls accounted for. "Close the manifest." The steel door slammed shut behind me with a clang that shook the room. I pounded on it, shouting, "I'm not dead! I'm not one of you!" The voice replied, almost tenderly, "You weren't supposed to be, Elias. But you answered the call." The lights flared bright white, blinding. When they dimmed, the water was gone. Dry floor, silent. Only the manifest lay at my feet, open to the final page. My name now had a single red line through it. I stared at it until my vision blurred. My hands trembled. "No," I whispered. "That's not me. That's not now." But when I looked down at my reflection in the shiny steel floor, I saw water dripping from my hair, my uniform, my face, and I remembered a night years ago, the storm, the distress call I ignored, the voice I swore I'd never forget, the same voice that had called me back here. The ship groaned deep in its belly. I heard engines roaring to life again, gears turning, the sound of movement. But we weren't sailing forward. We were sinking. I ran up the stairs shouting, "Let me out! Let me off this thing!" But every door I opened led back to the same cabin. The radio room. The microphone crackled, waiting. The photograph on the wall now showed only me. I pressed the mic button with shaking hands. "This is Elias Ward, aboard the SS Morwenna. If anyone hears this," static drowned me out. Then my own voice echoed back through the speakers, distorted and distant. "If anyone hears this, don't answer." I should have turned back when the ocean started whispering my name, but by then, the whispers were coming from inside the ship. The air below deck felt thick, like the fog outside had seeped into the metal itself. The light flickered in long, unnatural intervals, casting everything in slow-motion flashes. My footsteps echoed too loud, as if the corridors stretched and folded over themselves. Every few seconds the radio static from my handheld would hiss, then clear just long enough for a faint voice to say something that wasn't quite words. "Elias, stay." I froze. That was her voice. The same voice from the SOS call. The same tone I'd ignored on the night the Kestrel sank. You see, I told myself I'd misheard that call years ago, that the coordinates were wrong, that the sea just swallowed them faster than I could respond. But hearing her again now, clearer, desperate, I realized something worse. She had waited for me. The ship groaned, metal bending under invisible pressure. Somewhere behind me, a door slammed. I turned sharply. Only the long passageway, rusted walls, a glimmer of water lapping at the floor. My reflection wavered in it. Except it wasn't just mine. Another figure moved beside me, pale, still, watching. I lifted the radio closer to my face. "Who are you?" I whispered. "What do you want from me?" The voice crackled back. "You left us, you heard us, and you did nothing." Her words hit me harder than the cold. I dropped to my knees, my flashlight beam shaking as it caught the name stenciled on the nearest bulkhead. SS Morwenna. Fresh paint. No rust, no decay. Like time itself had stitched this vessel back together just to confront me. I stumbled forward, down a narrow stairwell. The deeper I went, the cleaner everything became. New metal. Intact wiring. The smell of oil instead of rot. I passed crew quarters where bunks were perfectly made. Tables neatly set with untouched plates. Steam rose faintly from mugs that should have been cold for decades. I whispered to myself, "This isn't real." The ship whispered back, "Then why are you here?" I found the radio room. Every dial gleamed. Every light blinked steadily. It was exactly like the one I'd abandoned when I quit the service. A mirror of my old station. I reached out and touched the mic. Warm. Suddenly the overhead speaker flared to life. Static screamed, then steadied. "Elias, come in. We're taking on water. Please. You're our last line." My pulse hammered. I knew those words. They were mine, replayed from years ago. The night everything went wrong, but the voice on the tape wasn't the captain or crew. It was me, begging myself to respond. The deck lurched violently. The ship moaned as if dragged downward by invisible chains. The lights dimmed, turned red. I grabbed the mic. Stop! Just tell me what you want. A low hum filled the room, almost like breathing through water. The porthole glass darkened, and for the first time I realized something terrible. There was no sea outside, only endless black, no waves, no horizon. Then the door shut behind me, bolted on its own. I spun, pounding it with my fists, shouting, but all I could hear was that same voice whispering inches from my ear now. You were supposed to save us. I tried. I screamed. I didn't know. You heard us, and you chose silence. My flashlight burst, plunging the room into darkness. Only the soft red radio light remained, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I backed against the wall, trembling. Tell me what you are, I said. The voice softened, almost tender now. You already know. We never left your frequency. The air turned colder. I felt a wetness spreading under my boots. Seawater pooling fast, rising up the walls. But when I reached to touch it, it wasn't water. It was oil, thick, black, clinging. It crawled up my arm like something alive. I tried to scream, but the sound died in my throat as the radio flared one last time, broadcasting a single piercing tone. The kind that burns straight through bone. Transmit, it said. You owe us a voice. My hands moved without me telling them to. I sat in front of the console, gripping the mic. My reflection in the metal was pale and hollow-eyed, lips moving before I could think. Words spilled out like a confession. This is radio operator Elias Ward, transmitting on Channel 9. I hear you now. All of you. The static roared, and somewhere beneath it, I heard hundreds of whispers. Men, women, children, layered into one endless call. The ship shuddered again, and for a moment, I thought I saw them. Faces pressed against the glass from outside, pale and swollen, floating in the black. Reaching, smiling, then silence. The red light blinked out. When I woke, I was back on the beach, my radio equipment half buried in sand. No ship, no fog, just the sea, calm and empty. My hands were clean, no oil, no blood. The only proof was the radio still in my lap, its screen flickering faintly. A signal repeating every 10 seconds. Transmission received. Awaiting next contact. I should have smashed it. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Because when I pressed the receiver to my ear, I heard my own voice whisper back, Elias, it's time to come home. Story number 02. I don't think it was supposed to notice us. The sonar said the trench was empty, but when we dropped the camera, it looked back. Beep. You know what's funny? Everyone keeps asking how I survived. No one ever asks what came back with me. I should have known the ocean doesn't like being watched. The deeper you go, the more it feels like it's watching you back. When I close my eyes now, I still see that blue. No, not blue. Black. The kind of black that swallows light, sound, and reason. We were supposed to make history that day, charting the newly discovered Mariana Extension Trench, a nameless scar in the Pacific that went deeper than any recorded point on Earth. But history doesn't care who gets remembered. It just eats whatever reaches too far. There were only two of us in the submersible, Mara and me. She sat across from me, illuminated by the pale green console lights, her face half hidden by the reflection of her data monitors. I remember her saying something about pressure density, about the readings not matching any known patterns. I wasn't listening. I was watching the sonar. I swear, I saw movement below the seabed, something pulsing, then vanishing, like the trench itself was breathing. We were descending past 32,000 feet when the first anomaly hit. The comms with surface control crackled, and then silence. Dead silence. Mara tried the backup line, but all we got was static. That's normal, I told her. Happens at depth. She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. The sub groaned. It always does, but this was different. Longer, deeper, almost like a moan. She turned to me and said, "Did you hear that?" I forced a laugh. Pressure settling. Steel's just talking. But when I looked down, my hand was shaking. I kept it hidden. By 35,000 feet, the light outside was gone. Only our flood lamps cut through the void, illuminating clouds of silt and the occasional drifting jellyfish. Every few minutes, Mara would whisper numbers, depth, pressure, oxygen, like prayers. I just nodded. I didn't tell her I kept hearing a faint clicking on the hull, rhythmic, almost curious, like fingernails. At first I thought it was my imagination. You hear things in that kind of silence. Your own pulse, your breathing, the creak of metal. But then Mara stopped mid-sentence. "Did you feel that?" she said. The sub had tapped. Once, twice, 3 times. We froze. Then it stopped. I told her it was nothing. Sediment shifting. Echoes. She looked at me for a long time before turning away. I could see her reflection in the viewport glass. But the strange thing is, there was something else behind her reflection. A faint shimmer, like movement in the water. We kept descending. 36,000, 37,000, 38,000 feet. The instruments began glitching, numbers flickering, radar freezing, cameras blurring. Mara muttered that the sensors were picking up organic mass signatures. I said that was impossible, but when she leaned closer to the sonar screen, she whispered, "It's under us." The sub jerked violently. We both screamed. Something, some current, I told myself, hit us from below, sending a vibration through the frame. The lights dimmed, then came back in bursts. For a few seconds I could have sworn I saw shadows swirling just beyond the beam. Not shapes, just movement, like smoke underwater. Mara wanted to abort. I refused. We were too close to the bottom. I said we owed it to the research, to ourselves. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want to come back a failure. I'd spent years chasing this dive, convincing sponsors, arguing with skeptics. I couldn't let it end because of fear, so I told her to keep recording. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. "Elias," she said quietly, "something's wrong down here." I laughed again, too quickly. "Everything's wrong down here." We dropped the camera drone into the abyss. It descended ahead of us, its little light blinking as it sank. The feed was grainy, distorted. At first, all we saw was silt and rock formations. Then, out of nowhere, the camera caught movement. Something enormous sliding past, just beyond the range of light. For a moment, the lens flared white, as if it had been looked at. Then the feed cut out. Mara covered her mouth. I tried to reboot the system, but the sub's main lights flickered again, then failed entirely. We were floating in pure darkness. The only sound was our breathing and the faint drip of condensation on metal. I started counting seconds. 1, 2, 3. Tap, we both turned. Another tap. Louder this time. I pressed my ear to the hull. The sound was coming from below us. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, like it was listening to us, echoing back. Mara began whispering, "Please, Elias, we need to go." But my mind was locked on that tapping. Every instinct told me not to move, not to speak, not even to breathe. The pressure outside was beyond comprehension. 8 tons per square inch. But I swear to you, what was hitting the hull wasn't water. Something brushed the viewport, just a streak of motion. I saw it, or thought I did. A pale curve, almost like a hand sliding across the glass. And then, nothing. I told Mara to increase ballast, to ascend. She hesitated, then complied. But the sub didn't rise. The thrusters strained, whining like dying animals. Yet we stayed perfectly still. That's when she started crying. Quietly at first, then uncontrollably. I remember saying, "Don't, you'll use up oxygen." I sounded calm, but I wasn't. My voice cracked. I think she noticed. We reset the system, rerouted power. Nothing. The lights flickered once more, just for a heartbeat, and in that brief flash, Mara gasped. "There's something outside," she whispered. "It's right there." I told her she was seeing her reflection. She said, "It's moving." And then, as if the ocean wanted to confirm her fear, the tapping came again. This time from every side. I don't remember what happened next clearly. The sub shook violently, instruments exploding in sparks. The pressure gauge spun out of control. I remember grabbing the emergency lever, hearing Mara scream my name, and then nothing. When I woke up, the lights were back on. The hull was intact. No cracks, no leaks, just silence. Mara sat perfectly still, staring into the viewport. I asked if she was okay. She didn't answer. I touched her shoulder. She flinched like she'd been shocked. "It stopped," she whispered. "It knows we're here." I wanted to ask what she meant, but before I could, the sonar screen blinked once. Just once, a single blip dead center. Moving upward. That was the last reading before the power died for good. And if I'm being honest, I don't think it was a malfunction. I didn't sleep after that night. Not when we lost power. Not when the lights came back. Not when the silence pressed against the glass like a living thing. I thought Mara would calm down eventually, that the panic would wear off, but she didn't speak to me for hours. She just kept staring at the viewport, whispering to herself. You'd think I'd try to comfort her, tell her it was going to be fine, but I didn't. I just sat there, recording notes into the black box recorder, pretending that if I focused on data, I wouldn't feel the cold crawling under my skin. I said in my log, minor power failure, crew stable, continuing research. That was a lie. A neat scientific lie to make chaos sound manageable, because what really happened, what I still can't explain, started the moment the sonar blinked. That single blip hadn't vanished. It followed us. No matter what direction we turned, the sonar pinged something moving parallel to us. It never approached, never drifted away, just mirrored us in perfect silence, like a shadow in water. Mara broke the silence first. It's watching us, she said. I laughed again. I'd been laughing too much lately, even when I didn't feel like it. Fish don't watch, I told her. They react, instinct. She didn't even look at me. That wasn't instinct, Elias. That was intent. I wanted to tell her she was imagining things. But the truth is, I'd been hearing it too. Not the tapping this time. Something softer. A faint hum under the sound of the oxygen filters. Like someone singing through the metal. By hour 6, the temperature inside the cabin had dropped below freezing. Condensation frosted the windows. I remember writing it down, trying to sound calm for the recorder. Atmospheric pressure stable. Temperature variance noted. Another lie. My breath was fogging, my hands numb, and Mara's voice had started to tremble when she spoke. She kept checking the camera feed, the one from the external drone that had cut out. Somehow the screen flickered back to life for a moment. Static, then an image. Just one frame before it died again. It showed the trench floor. Only the trench floor. But in the center of the image was our sub. I told her it was an old file, playback from before the dive. But even as I said it, my heart dropped. The timestamp was now. That's when she stopped trusting me. She pulled away, muttering that something was wrong with the timeline. that maybe we weren't where we thought we were. I told her to stop talking like that she was letting fear rewrite her logic. She said, "Maybe logic doesn't belong here." I wanted to slap her for saying that. I didn't, but I thought about it. The hull creaked again. Then came the sound, like air moving through metal pipes, only slower. The kind of sound that makes you feel like the walls themselves are breathing. Mara leaned close to the microphone array, her voice barely audible. "It's not current, it's voice." "Listen," I told her to stop. I told her she was hearing feedback, but she shushed me and adjusted the frequency knobs. The noise shifted. Words. No, not words. But something trying to be words slid through the speakers, wet and distorted. And I'll never forget the sound that came next. A whisper through the static, soft but clear. It said her name, Mara. She screamed and slammed the system off. I tried to tell her it was interference, that underwater acoustics do strange things. But I didn't believe it myself. I'd heard it too. After that, she refused to look at me. She strapped herself into the seat and turned off her headset, mumbling about the trench remembering. I kept recording. Crew showing signs of paranoia, possible oxygen contamination. That was my next lie, because it wasn't oxygen poisoning. I knew what paranoia felt like. This wasn't it. This felt like someone else's thoughts inside your skull, whispering doubts in your own voice. At some point, Mara started humming. It was the same frequency as the hum I'd been hearing before. When I asked her what she was doing, she said, "It's listening to us anyway. We might as well talk back." I don't know why, but that made me furious. I told her she was compromising the mission, that she wasn't thinking straight. She laughed. Not a kind laugh, a broken one. "You don't get it, do you? You're not the one it wants." Her words stuck with me. You're not the one it wants. I don't remember much after that for a while. My memory skips. I know I must have fallen asleep, though I don't remember closing my eyes. When I woke up, the lights were out again. Everything was quiet, except for one thing. Someone was whispering right next to me. It wasn't Mara. She was asleep. The whisper came from the comms channel. I leaned closer. It was her voice, Mara's voice, saying things I couldn't understand, over and over, but she was still asleep beside me. When I tried to wake her, she wouldn't open her eyes. Her mouth moved, but the sound came from the speakers instead. I panicked, slapped the console, yanked the comms cord out, and the whispering stopped instantly. She gasped awake, clutching her throat like she'd been drowning. "I told you," she said hoarsely. "It knows we're here." I told her she was hallucinating. I think I yelled it. She cried then, really cried, and said, "It's not me hearing things. It's you." The way she said that, quiet, shaking, made me realize she wasn't talking about sound anymore. She started packing the sample vials, the biological containers we'd collected before the blackout. "We need to take this back," she said. "They need to see what's down here." But I didn't let her. I told her it was contaminated, that we couldn't bring anything up without testing. I even tried to take the samples from her. That's when she hit me, hard across the face. Her voice cracked. "You don't want to go up, do you?" I didn't answer. She turned away, strapped herself into the emergency pod, and said she'd surface alone if she had to. I told her she wouldn't make it, not at this depth. She just smiled. "Better to die trying than stay here listening." She hit the release. There was a hiss, a flash of light, and then her pod detached. I watched it drift upward into the black. For a few seconds her beacon blinked on the sonar, then gone. The trench was silent again. I told myself the pressure destroyed the pod, that she never made it. But sometimes, when I replay the last seconds of the comms log, I hear something that shouldn't be there, right before the signal cuts. A whisper, faint but unmistakable. It says, "Don't follow." And I swear it's not her voice anymore. They say memory distorts under pressure. I think it's true, except the pressure isn't always water. Sometimes it's guilt, pressing from the inside out until the truth folds into something you can live with. When they found me, I was floating alone. The rescue crew said the sub was half submerged, lights flickering like dying fireflies. No sign of Mara, no emergency pod, just me, strapped into the pilot seat, mumbling coordinates that didn't exist. They hauled me aboard the Havelock, an oceanographic research vessel stationed 200 miles north. I remember the cold air biting my lungs, the crew's faces hovering above me like ghosts. Someone asked what happened. I told them the truth, or at least the version I could still say aloud. Mechanical failure, structural damage, lost communications. Pilot survived, clean, simple, clinical. I didn't mention the whispers. The debriefing started the next morning. Commander Hayes, stiff uniform, salt grey beard, kept his distance like I carried a disease. You were down there 41 hours, he said. Oxygen should have run out after 36, I shrugged. Systems must have recycled better than expected. He studied me. Then where's Dr. Mara Klein? I didn't answer. I just stared at my hands, still trembling, still smelling faintly of brine and burnt circuitry. They let me shower. The water was warm, but I swear it pulsed with the same rhythm as the tapping on the hull. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bunk creaked like the sub. Every time the ship rolled, I heard her name in the pipes. Mara, drawn out in the hiss of steam. Maybe I was just hearing things. Maybe I wasn't. The next day, they gave me my personal effects. Watch, dive badge, data drive, and a small metal case I didn't recognize. It was sealed tight, stamped with the mission code. Found this in your sub, Hayes said. You were clutching it when they pulled you out. I told him I'd never seen it before. He frowned. We scanned it. Organic residue inside, classified as potential sample. You want to tell me what it is? I shook my head. He didn't press. Maybe he saw something in my face that told him not to. That night, curiosity won. I opened it. Inside was a single glass vial filled with dark water. Not black exactly. More like the color of old blood diluted by the sea. Something moved in it. Just a shimmer, like the surface breathing. I screwed the lid back on and hid it under my bunk. After that, the nightmares started. In the first one, I was back in the sub, alone. The lights flickered, and across the viewport, a handprint appeared, slender, feminine, pressed from the outside. When I woke, my cabin window was fogged from my own breath. Only, there was a handprint on that too. By the third night, I stopped pretending I could sleep. I started talking into my recorder again. Day 3 on the Havelock, I whispered, still hearing. Things. I wanted to sound calm, rational, but my voice cracked halfway through. Maybe decompression sickness. Maybe auditory hallucinations. Except hallucinations don't leave condensation rings on the floor. The ship's medic, Dr. Wren, noticed the bruises on my wrists, marks from where I'd held the sample case too tightly. He asked if I wanted sedatives. I said no. I didn't want to dream. Later that evening, I went to the observation deck. The Pacific stretched endless and silent. Beneath it, miles below, lay the trench. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, like a thought pressing against the back of my skull. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Couldn't sleep either. Hayes asked. His tone was casual, but his eyes were wary. I keep thinking about the depth, I said. It's still down there. He nodded slowly. You think she's down there too? I wanted to say no. Instead, I said, she heard something before the blackout. A voice. Hayes's expression changed. A voice? I nodded. It said her name. He studied me a long moment, then quietly asked, and you heard it too? I lied. No, he left after that. but I caught him later through the porthole, talking with the medic in hushed tones. They glanced toward my cabin more than once. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. No signature, just 2 words, "Don't open." The vial was warm when I touched it. By afternoon, the ship's systems began acting strange. Temperature drops, sonar glitches, metallic creaks that echoed the rhythm I knew too well. Hayes blamed equipment faults, but I could see the fear creeping into the crew's eyes. One diver claimed he heard whispers coming through the ballast pipes during maintenance. They laughed it off, nervous laughter, but no one went below deck after dark. That night, I caught my reflection in the mirror. At least, I thought it was mine, but the reflection blinked after I did. Just a fraction late, like it was catching up. I smashed the mirror. Ren sedated me after that, or tried to. I woke in the infirmary, wrists strapped. He said I'd been muttering in my sleep, repeating coordinates, counting in 3s. When I asked what coordinates, he said they were impossible, over the trench's deepest point, farther than any vessel could go. He told me I needed rest. I told him I needed to return. He thought I was delirious. Maybe I was, but the hum had returned, faint through the ventilation, pulsing like a heartbeat. That night, the vial cracked. I didn't notice at first. A faint hiss woke me, a wet chemical scent, briny and sweet. I reached under the bunk and felt moisture spreading across the floor. The liquid shimmered in the dim light, tiny ripples forming concentric circles. Then I heard it, Mara's voice, soft, distant, rising from the puddle like it had depth. "Elias," she whispered. "You left me." I stumbled back, heart hammering. "You're dead," I said. My voice sounded wrong, hollow. She laughed, a thin, watery sound. "Not yet," the intercom crackled. "All crew to deck. Unidentified sonar contact." I ran topside. Hayes was shouting orders, pointing at the radar screen. Something massive was rising beneath us, slow, deliberate. The sonar image distorted, then vanished. "Submarine," someone yelled. Hayes shook his head. "Too big." The deck lights flickered. I looked over the rail. The sea was still, too still. Then a bubble broke the surface, followed by another. The water churned violently, as if exhaling. For one terrible second, I thought I saw movement. Something pale just under the waves, spreading outward. Then silence. Hayes barked for power checks, but I was already running back to my cabin. The vial was gone. Only a wet outline remained. I followed the trail of droplets to the door. They led upward, toward the ceiling. Something dripped onto my face. Warm, salty. I looked up. A single handprint slid down the metal above me. I grabbed my recorder. "If anyone finds this," I whispered, "don't bring it up. Don't even look." It followed us. "It's still following." I paused, breath shaking. "I think it's in the water system now." The ship's pipes groaned. A distant tap echoed 3 times, and then silence again. I don't remember when the ship stopped moving. Maybe it never did. Maybe everything after that night was just the trench pretending to be the surface. They said we were 2 days from landfall, but the horizon never changed. Always grey water. Always the same flock of gulls circling overhead that never landed. I tried counting them once. There were 6. The next day there were 7, then 9. Then they vanished altogether. The crew stopped talking to me, maybe because of what happened to Hayes. He drowned in his own cabin. That's what the medic said. Locked from the inside, lungs full of seawater. No breach, no flooding, just water inside him. Ren tried to explain it. Cardiac rupture, pressure shock. All those neat little terms scientists use when they're too afraid to say what they really mean. But when they zipped up the body bag, the fabric was soaked through, and the deck smelled like the trench, cold, metallic, ancient. After Hayes died, they started keeping me in isolation. Said it was for my safety, but I could still hear them whispering outside the door at night. I think they blamed me. Maybe they were right to. I still had my recorder. The battery flickered low, but I couldn't stop talking to it. It's easier than talking to people. People need answers. The recorder just listens. Day 7 since rescue, I said. My voice sounded strange, like it was underwater. Multiple deaths aboard. Environmental contamination likely, but I think it's not external. I hesitated. I think it's memory. It remembers us. I'd been having dreams. No, replays. Not like ordinary dreams, but exact scenes from the trench. The light blinking on the sonar, Mara's voice, the tapping. Each time it felt sharper, closer, more complete. In the last one, she wasn't outside the sub anymore. She was behind me, whispering into my ear. I woke to find condensation covering my cabin window. A single word traced in the fog. Below. The vial, what was left of it, was gone again. I didn't report it this time. There was no point. Ren stopped believing me after the first few hallucinations. But then, 2 nights later, he vanished too. Left his shoes by the infirmary sink. The floor was wet. After that, I stopped pretending I could explain it. The ship's systems began failing one by one. Power surged. Lights dimmed. Instruments froze on readings that made no sense. Negative depth, negative pressure, coordinates looping in on themselves. It was like we were sinking in circles. On the 5th night, I found a message written on my mirror. Not in condensation this time, in salt. Just one line. You left me there. I told myself it wasn't her. Couldn't be. But I remembered the last thing I saw before blacking out in the sub. The way her pod drifted upward. The faint light blinking before it disappeared. What if it never surfaced? What if something else did? That's when I started hearing her again. Not through the speakers this time. Through the water. Every faucet, every pipe. The voice came bubbling up, faint but insistent. Elias, it said, you can't hide from the deep. I stopped using the sinks. I stopped showering. I stopped drinking. The others thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But I wasn't the only one hearing her anymore. The engineer, Malik, came to me pale as bone. The ballast tanks, he whispered. They're breathing. By morning, he was gone too. The remaining crew tried to send a distress signal, but the radio only looped static. Our own last transmission from the trench, repeating endlessly. Descent stable, crew stable, continuing research. I don't know how many days passed after that. Time dissolved into a thick blur of noise and salt. My fingertips blistered from holding the recorder too long. My skin felt damp, soft, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Then one night, I heard tapping again. Not outside the hull, inside my head. Same rhythm. Same pattern. I think it's been there all along, buried beneath my heartbeat. I started recording everything, every sound, every whisper, every breath, because if I stop talking, I start remembering what really happened, and I can't let that happen. The truth is, Mara didn't die when her pod detached. I saw her face once more, just before the blackout. She was screaming, but the water was inside the sub. Inside her. Her eyes went white, and the glass cracked, and something came through. It looked like her, but it wasn't. It smiled. When I woke, she was gone, and something else was breathing through the comms. That's the part I never told anyone. Not the rescuers, not the investigators, not you, because if I say it out loud, it remembers. I can hear it now, behind the walls, moving through the pipes. The ship isn't creaking anymore. It's whispering. It knows my name again. Elias. The lights flicker as I write this. There's water seeping under the door. It smells like her hair used to smell. Salt and iron. I keep telling myself it's just seawater, just a leak. But the puddle ripples when I breathe. Something's rising. The engines stopped an hour ago. I went topside. The ocean was perfectly still. No wind, no waves. The surface looked wrong, too flat, like a pane of glass. Beneath it, I thought I saw shapes, dozens of them, moving slowly in unison, like they were waiting. I came back to my cabin, locked the door. I can't hear the crew anymore. Maybe they jumped. Maybe they were taken. Maybe they remembered too much. I'm recording this final entry in case someone finds the ship. Don't go below deck. Don't touch the water. And if you hear tapping, don't answer. The puddle by the door is deeper now. My reflection isn't matching my movements again. It's smiling. It looks like Mara. She's mouthing something through the water. I think I know what it is. It's not a threat. It's an invitation. I reach for the recorder. My fingers brush the water. It's warm, alive. It feels like it's pulling. Maybe I'll go this time. Maybe that's what it wants. Maybe that's what I deserve. If anyone ever hears this, breath quivers. Don't send another expedition. The trench doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. It just waits for us to come back. I can hear the tapping again. Louder now. From every direction. The walls are shaking. The lights are gone. Everything's dark again, just like before, just like below. Static. Then a final whisper, barely audible. Welcome back. End. Story number 3. People think we found something on that island, but the truth is, it found us. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be alive right now. The others, yeah, they didn't make it back. Or maybe they never existed. I don't remember anymore. I've watched the footage 100 times and I still can't remember whose idea it was. Mara says it was mine. I keep telling myself it was hers. But maybe the island doesn't care who started it. Maybe it just needed someone to follow the map. The screen flickers. A shaky frame of moonlight hitting wet pavement. My voice overlaps the footage, unsteady, trying to sound casual like I'm doing a travel vlog. But there's that tremor underneath, like I already know how it ends. We were in my apartment that night, rain tapping the windows, the dull blue glow of my laptop lighting up our faces. Mara leaned over my shoulder, her eyes wide. You see it too, right? That's not on any chart. She was right. The island wasn't marked on any map. Not on Google, not on any nautical record. Just a grainy post buried deep in a forgotten forum, with a hand-drawn sketch that looked older than the internet itself. Lines that bent wrong, coastlines that didn't match. In the corner, written in trembling ink, "Do not land." I should have closed it then, should have laughed it off. But Mara wasn't the type to walk away from weird. She leaned closer, whispering like she didn't want the map to hear us. We should go. Those 3 words, that's all it took. I keep saying it was her idea, but there's a clip, later, when I reviewed the footage, where my voice says, "I found it. I just wanted to see if it was real." So maybe it wasn't her after all. Maybe it was me. Cut to footage, the dock before sunrise. The camera shakes as I laugh into it, pretending I'm calm. So yeah, here we are, idiots with a boat and a death wish. Mara waves from behind me, wrapped in a red jacket that looks almost black in the early light. You can't see her face clearly, just the glint of her smile, and the fog rolling behind her like it's chasing us. The engine coughs to life. The ocean spreads out, flat, endless, grey. I remember thinking it looked too still. No wind, no sound. Even the seagulls were gone. We kept the camera running the whole time like proof could protect us. Mara joked about YouTube clicks. If we disappear, she said, at least we'll go viral. Her laugh cut through the static. Too sharp, too forced. I laughed too, but my reflection in the cabin window didn't. Somewhere, an hour out, the GPS stopped working. The screen froze on a blank stretch of sea. Theo's voice came through the radio. He was supposed to meet us at the mainland later, but his signal broke apart mid-sentence. That was the last time I heard him clearly. Mara said it was just interference, but I swear underneath the static there was something else. Something like breathing. At one point I filmed the compass. It was spinning slowly, lazy circles, like it didn't care about direction anymore. Mara teased me. Relax, Captain. Maybe it's just magnetic rock. But there wasn't any rock. Just open water, silver and silent. And then a sound, soft, deep, rhythmic. Like waves, but not quite. I turned the camera, scanning the horizon. Nothing. But when I played the audio back later, there were whispers under the surf. One of them, faint, sounded like my name. That's when Mara noticed the pattern on the map matched the shape of the clouds above us. Perfectly. Every curve, every jagged coastline mirrored in the sky. She said it was beautiful. I said it felt wrong. She didn't answer, just stared into the fog as if she could see something moving inside it. I remember the moment the island appeared. 1 minute, nothing but sea. The next, it was there. A black smear rising from the mist, covered in twisted trees that looked like hands reaching out of the ground. No birds, no sound. Just that endless breathing again, louder now, coming from the direction of the shore. Mara grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You feel that?" she asked. I nodded, but I didn't know what she meant. There was no wind, no movement, just pressure, like the air itself was pushing back. The footage turns grainy around here, maybe because I dropped the camera when the boat hit the shallows. You can hear Mara laughing, too loud, too sudden, like she's trying to cover the silence. We made it, but when I replayed the video, her laugh echoed for a few seconds too long, overlapping itself. Later, sitting by the fire, she asked me what I'd heard when we reached shore. I told her I didn't know, but the truth? It sounded like someone whispering, "Welcome back." I didn't tell her that. I couldn't. The last clip from that night shows Mara holding the map by the firelight. The ink looks darker now, like it's still wet. She says something quiet. Too quiet for the mic to catch, and the flames flare blue for a second. She laughs again, softer this time. See? Nothing to be afraid of. Then the tape cuts to static. I pause the playback. My voice trembles. I should have burned that map. I think it wanted to be found. For a moment there's silence. Only the hum of the camera. The faint hiss of the sea outside my window. Then, almost too quiet to hear, just under my breath. Or maybe it was never a map. The light in the room flickers. The audio crackles like something breathing close to the microphone. I turn the camera toward the window, but there's only fog pressing against the glass. A shape moves inside it, slow, deliberate. Then the screen goes black. I didn't realize the sun never rose on that island. It only pretended to. The light there wasn't light. It was a trick, a flicker, like something else was choosing when we could see and when we couldn't. The video opens on the boat scraping against shore. The camera shakes, salt water spitting against the lens. Behind it, Mara's voice, too bright for the grey morning, cuts through the static. "We're alive! We did it!" Her words echo for a moment, swallowed by the fog. There's no sound of waves, no wind. Even the air feels thick, like breathing through cloth. I tell the camera we'll explore a bit, make camp, maybe record some drone footage. But the truth is, the silence already feels wrong. It's not the kind of quiet that comes from emptiness. It's the kind that listens back. We drag the boat onto shore. The sand is darker than it should be, oily, cold, sticking to our hands like soot. The smell is metallic, faintly sweet, like rust mixed with something living. Mara looks thrilled, feels untouched, she says, smiling into the lens. Her reflection in the viewfinder flickers once, just once. I tell myself it's the lens fogging. I pan the camera across the beach. The tree line is dense, full of skeletal trunks twisting upward into mist. Between the branches, you can see fragments of something man-made. Corrugated metal walls, a bent sign half buried in vines, the letters barely visible. Unit 7, entry restricted. Mara grins. Military stuff, probably old research base. Told you this place is real. Her voice trembles on that last word. Real. She doesn't notice it, but I do. We hike toward the ruins, following a narrow trail that feels carved more by footsteps than nature. The air grows colder the deeper we go. Every few steps, there's a crunch beneath the moss. Old shoes, shattered bottles, bits of clothing buried in the mud. The camera records everything, except sometimes, when I play it back, whole seconds are missing. Gaps. Places where the image warps and the sound bends like a breath drawn too close to the mic. At one point, I film Mara standing in the middle of a clearing. She's staring at a crumpled photograph she found half buried under leaves. It shows 3 people, 2 men, 1 woman, smiling at a campfire. Their faces are blurred, as if the picture didn't want to remember them. Mara flips it over. On the back, faint pencil words. Don't look at night. She laughs. Creepy, huh? But she keeps the photo in her pocket. By evening, the light starts dimming, not fading, but flickering. The trees cast double shadows that shift even when we don't move. I light the lantern, and that's when I notice the fog isn't just around us. It's above us too, blotting out the sky. There's no sunset, just a slow choking grey that thickens until the forest disappears. We make camp near a rusted metal door jutting from the hillside. Mara insists it's an entrance to the base, but the handle's welded shut. She presses her ear to the metal and says she hears humming. I hear nothing. The camera catches something strange. For a split second, light flickers behind the door, like a fluorescent bulb struggling to stay alive. But the island has no power, no wires, no cables, nothing. We eat in silence. The fire barely burns, smoke sinking instead of rising. Then Mara says she sees something moving near the tree line. I don't look. I just listen. There's that sound again. Breathing, slow and wet, somewhere beyond the fog. Mara, I whisper, get inside the tent. She doesn't move. Her eyes are fixed on something behind me. When I turn, there's nothing but mist. The fire flickers blue for a heartbeat, then steadies. I must have fallen asleep. When I wake up, the fire's gone out. The camera's still recording. Mara's missing. The first 30 seconds are silent. Just the fog swirling. My voice calling her name. Then faintly, her laughter comes from somewhere in the woods. Not close, not far. Just around, I grab the flashlight and start walking. The beam cuts through the mist only a few feet ahead. The air feels heavier, almost liquid. The laughter stops, then a whisper. It's not an island. Her voice, but not quite right. Slower, stretched, like it's being played backward. The ground beneath my feet shifts. The sand breathes. I swear it moves, expanding and contracting like lungs. Something crunches nearby. I swing the light and see footprints, Mara's, leading toward the metal structure. But halfway there they vanish, just stop. When she finally comes back, it's almost dawn, or what passes for dawn here. She's soaked, shivering, her jacket torn. She doesn't say where she went. Her pupils are wide, her voice soft. It's not an island, she whispers again. It's a mouth. Then she smiles, just barely, and stares past me like she's watching something move behind the camera. I tell her we need to leave, but she only shakes her head. Too late, she says. It knows we're here now. Her hands are trembling. There's mud under her nails, and something red, darker than blood, I try to ask what happened, but the camera cuts out. When it flickers back, Mara's sitting by the fire again, calm, humming a tune I don't recognize. The flames burn clean white, no smoke at all. Her voice is steady now. Go to sleep, Evan. We'll explore tomorrow. I want to ask her about Theo, where he is if he's still coming. But my throat won't work. The air feels thick again. My skin itches like it's listening. The last frame of the recording shows the lantern dimming, and for a second, just before it dies, there's a shape standing behind Mara. Tall, thin, watching. The island doesn't like light, I whisper into the lens. It decides when you can see. The fire sputters out, leaving nothing but the sound of breathing. Steady, patient, and close. I told myself I was looking for answers. But when I pressed play, what I found wasn't a recording. It was a mirror, and it didn't show what happened. It showed what I wanted to believe happened. The video starts in black, then a single frame flickers to life. The campsite abandoned. The fire pit is cold. The tents are empty. Mara's red jacket lies half buried in sand. The timestamp says 4:16 a.m., but I know that's wrong. I'd been awake at that time, sitting right there, whispering her name. So how could Theo's camera have been filming? He wasn't even with us. Not yet. I found his camera the next morning, propped against a rock near the shoreline. Battery half drained, lens cracked. It shouldn't have been there. He hadn't arrived, at least. I don't think he had. I carry it back to camp. Mara's still asleep, or pretending to be. Her face looks pale, almost translucent in the dull grey light. The map is gone. When I ask her where it is, she just says, "It moved." I don't argue. I don't even ask what that means. The camera's screen flickers as I turn it on. There's a faint whine, like it's straining to breathe. For a few seconds, static. Then, images. Us. On the island. Except the footage shows 4 people. The frame is wide, shot from the edge of the forest. I can see myself, Mara, and a third figure. Blurry, faceless, standing just behind me. Theo's voice narrates quietly in the background. He doesn't see it. He doesn't see himself. I pause the video, my hands shaking. That can't be Theo's voice. It's deeper, slower, like it's being spoken underwater. I rewind, play it again. Same thing. 3 of us, and 1 more. When I show it to Mara, she doesn't look surprised. She just says, "I told you, it found us." The next clip plays automatically. It's nighttime again. The camera's pointing toward the metal door in the hill, the one we couldn't open. There's light spilling out from the edges now, pulsing like a heartbeat. Theo's voice whispers, "It's awake." I freeze the frame and step closer to the screen. Behind the door, through a slit in the rusted metal, I swear I can see movement, something shifting, pressing against the inside like it's trying to breathe through steel. The recording shakes violently, and for a second, it's not Theo's face on the reflection. It's mine, my voice whispering. It's not keeping something in, it's keeping something out. I don't remember saying that, but it's definitely my voice. Mara sits beside me, silent. Her hands twitch occasionally, like she's trying to remember how to move them. I ask her again about the map. She doesn't answer. Then she says something that makes my stomach drop. "You said we'd find your father here." I tell her I never said that, but she's staring right through me, like I'm the one lying. "You said he disappeared after Unit 7. You said this was his island. My father's name hasn't been spoken in years, not since they found his ship wrecked off the same coast, not since the government sealed the report. But there's a box, one I'd found in his belongings weeks ago. containing a compass, a photo, and that same hand-drawn map. I told myself I'd thrown it away. I guess I didn't. The footage cuts to another clip. Theo's voice again. He brought us here. The screen distorts. My reflection swims across the black glass, warped by static. Mara's laugh echoes faintly, only it's looped, glitching, replaying every few seconds. I try to shut it off. The button doesn't respond. The fourth figure appears again. Closer now. It's standing beside Mara, its shape long and thin, edges flickering like torn film. She looks at it, not afraid, almost reverent. "We can't leave," she whispers in the video. "He promised it a story." Then her head turns toward the camera. No, toward me. And even though I'm watching a recording, she's looking straight into my eyes. I drop the device. The screen keeps playing on its own, showing flashes, trees bending, sand shifting, a human shape crawling out of the fog. The whispers get louder. They sound like my name repeated over and over, overlapping until it becomes one long, wet hiss. Then silence. A single line of text appears on the screen, scribbled in white static. "Stop watching." I don't. I rewind instead, forcing it to play again, needing proof. But every time, the footage changes. The fourth figure moves closer. Mara's expression shifts. First smiling, then crying, then mouthing something I can't hear. When I finally catch it, frame by frame, her lips form one word. "Run." I yank the camera battery out. The light dies instantly, but the faint mechanical hum doesn't stop. It keeps going, soft and steady, like a pulse still trapped inside. That night, Mara refuses to talk. She sits by the extinguished fire, humming that same tune from before. The melody loops endlessly, off-key, like a lullaby for something that doesn't sleep. When I ask if she remembers Theo, she tilts her head. "He's already here," she says. "He never left." The fog creeps closer around our camp. It smells like wet metal again. I can't tell if the sound I hear is the ocean or the camera trying to breathe. I turn it toward myself, whispering to the audience, my confession, my proof, my warning. I watched the recording because I thought it would explain everything, but it only showed me what I buried. The camera's red light flickers once, like it's acknowledging me. Behind me, Mara starts laughing softly, almost lovingly. Then she says, "It's your turn to record now." The recording I shouldn't have watched. "It's still watching me," I whisper into the lens. The battery indicator flashes red. The sound of breathing grows louder until it's all there is. And somewhere in the static, someone whispers back, "You ever wake up and realize the air in your room is breathing with you?" That's how I knew I didn't leave the island. I just brought it home. The camera clicks on. Static hums like distant surf. The frame tilts sideways before correcting itself. Evan's face fills the lens, eyes sunken, skin pale and glistening like he hasn't seen sunlight in weeks. He gives a shaky half smile. "So, yeah, I'm home. Guess I made it out." The background doesn't look like home. The walls behind him are damp, grey, the windows fogged from the inside. Somewhere faintly water drips. Evan doesn't notice. He sets the camera down on a table. The lens catches his reflection in a mirror behind him. For a moment there are 3 reflections. He keeps talking, voice too steady to be normal. People online keep asking what happened out there. They think it was a hoax or some missing persons thing. They want the truth. He laughs softly. But truth's slippery, you know. It sticks to you. It changes shape. He picks up the camera and walks through his apartment. The lights flicker. The air feels heavy like he's moving underwater. He opens a drawer. Inside, the old compass from his father's box spins wildly. He stops it with one finger, breathing hard. "It's still moving," he whispers, even when everything else stops. He looks up suddenly, staring past the lens. "Mara?" But no one answers. He insists Mara's alive. Says she texted him once after they got back. He shows the message to the camera. It wants another story. The timestamp says 3:07 a.m., the same minute every clip from the island used to glitch. He scrolls through his contacts, stops on Theo's name. The profile picture is static, literally static, a white noise pattern that shouldn't exist on a phone. Evan hesitates, then calls. The phone rings once. Then the same whispering he heard on the island fills the speaker. He drops the phone. The whisper doesn't stop. It crawls out of the speaker, faint but rhythmic, matching his breathing again. The camera footage jumps. He's pacing now, talking to himself, the lens trembling in his grip. "It followed me, didn't it? Not her, not Theo, me." He points to the fog pressing against the window. "It's been outside every night since. I hear it move around the house. The walls creak like ribs." He stops suddenly. His gaze drifts toward the window again. The camera zooms without him touching it. Outside, the fog is alive, rolling, pulsing. A shadow shifts within it, taller than the house, thin and wrong. Evan forces a laugh. "See? Just fog, just weather." But his hand trembles so badly the image blurs. That night, he sets the camera by his bed and records himself sleeping. The footage is black and white, silent except for faint breathing. At 2:54 a.m., the door creaks open by itself. At 2:56, someone hums that same off-key lullaby Mara used to sing. At 3:07, the blanket lifts slightly, like something slides beneath it, and his face twitches as if he's dreaming. When he wakes up, the blanket is dry, but his hair is wet with seawater. He starts breaking down in front of the camera. It's not nightmares, it's returning. I see sand under the floorboards. The smell of rust and salt won't leave. I think the island's trying to finish the story. He opens the drawer again. The compass has stopped spinning now. It points directly toward the window. The fog outside presses closer, the glass warping inward, bending like it's being breathed on from the other side. Evan whispers, "I told it I'd tell the story. That's why it let me go." Then his voice breaks. But stories never end. They just wait. He starts reviewing his footage again. Everything from the trip, every scream, every flicker. He freezes a frame from chapter 2, the shape behind Mara. He zooms in. The face, barely visible, is his own. Eyes hollow, mouth open like it's whispering. He stumbles backward, knocking over the chair. "That's not me. That's not..." He stops mid-sentence, glancing toward the window again. The fog's gone, but now there's wet sand pooling beneath the table. The next few clips are fragmented, Evan muttering, pacing, tearing pages from his father's journal. Each page has the same phrase written over and over. The mouth opens for the storyteller. He looks straight into the camera now, voice low and tired. I think it needed someone to remember it, to speak it out loud. Once you tell a story, it becomes real, right? He forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "So, I'll stop talking. Maybe that'll make it forget me." He reaches toward the camera, but before the feed cuts, something flickers in the reflection of the window, 3 silhouettes standing behind him. The final scene plays hours later. The camera has turned itself on again. The apartment is dark, filled with fog. The floor is coated in sand. Evan stands near the window, unmoving. His voice is calm, almost gentle. I think it wants to finish where we left off. He turns the camera toward the fog. A faint whisper answers him. Layered voices, overlapping. all speaking one word. Stay. The screen distorts. For half a second, you can see the island again. Same shoreline, same metal structure, but this time, there's a single light flickering inside, and at the edge of the frame, someone's walking toward it. Evan's voice, barely audible, speaks over the static. Maybe I never left. Then, silence. Only the sound of slow, rhythmic breathing fills the void. The camera light flickers once, then goes out. Story number 4. They told me the shipyard was abandoned, but every night I'd hear the cranes move on their own, and the ocean whisper my name. The weird part, I didn't tell anyone my name. They told me the shipyard was abandoned, but when I got there, the cranes were already moving. At least that's what I thought I saw. I'd blink, and they'd be still again. Towering shapes frozen against a bruised, fog-smeared sky. The kind of fog that tasted like rust when you breathed it in. I remember thinking the place looked like a skeleton. All ribs and hollow lungs. Broken hulls, twisted rails, corroded bolts clinging to nothing. Quiet. Too quiet. That's what I wanted. Quiet. Somewhere the past couldn't follow. The company, if you can call it that, found me online. A vague listing, overnight maintenance, remote shipyard. Good pay, no supervision, no interviews, no background checks. Just a message telling me where to go, and that payment would be handled weekly. It sounded like a scam, honestly, but I was desperate. I'd lost my job 2 months earlier after... Well, I don't want to get into that. Let's just say I needed to disappear for a while. When I arrived, the gate was unlocked, chain rusted through. There was no one to greet me, no trucks, no footprints in the mud. Just a tiny prefab office with one flickering light bulb and a note on the desk. Welcome, Elias. Keep the generators running. Do not stay past midnight. At first, I laughed. I thought it was a prank. Who even writes notes like that anymore? But when you're standing in the middle of a dead shipyard with fog swallowing the horizon, jokes don't land the same. The first night passed quietly enough. The generators groaned, the sea lapped against the docks, and the metal cranes creaked in the wind. I told myself the noises were just the ocean breathing, but sometime after 2 a.m. I heard something else. A voice, not clear, not even loud, just there, like someone humming underwater. It came between the generator's rhythm, like a whisper threaded through machinery. I remember freezing, holding my breath, thinking maybe I was just tired. But then it said my name. Elias. Soft. Close. I spun around so fast my flashlight slipped from my hand and cracked against the ground. The beam rolled across the concrete, catching nothing but empty docks and the faint shimmer of water. My heart was pounding, but the air stayed perfectly still. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I told myself I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, isolation, maybe even some generator feedback. That's what I said. But when I replayed the sound in my mind, it didn't feel mechanical. It felt human, like someone calling to me from beneath the waves. Still, I kept working. I'm not proud of it, but I needed the money. Every night I checked the generators, tightened bolts, marked readings. Routine kept me sane. Routine makes you forget. Except I couldn't forget, because every night around the same hour I'd hear it again. Always faint, always from the direction of the water. Sometimes just my name, sometimes something else, something that almost sounded like a question. And sometimes I answered. I didn't mean to. It just slipped out. A whisper, a what? Or who's there? But once you start responding to things you can't see, it changes you. It opens something. I told myself I wasn't scared, but that wasn't true. Fear isn't always screaming and running. Sometimes it's quieter, like holding your breath for too long because you don't trust what you'll inhale next. A few nights in, I thought I saw movement near Dock 4. A silhouette, maybe. A person walking along the edge. But when I blinked, it was gone. I convinced myself it was a trick of the fog, or maybe my own shadow warped by the floodlights. Except the lights weren't on that night. I didn't tell anyone, mostly because there was no one to tell. No supervisor, no co-workers, no emergency number. Just me and the water. And maybe that's how I liked it. You see, solitude can make you feel safe when you're trying to forget something, when you don't want questions asked. But silence, true silence, starts to feel like it's listening. I'd lie in the office some nights, unable to sleep, the walls vibrating from the distant clang of waves against metal. Sometimes I'd swear I heard footsteps on the catwalks above me, heavy, slow, deliberate. Once I even shouted for whoever it was to stop messing around. But when I climbed up there, flashlight trembling in my hand, there was nothing, just an old seagull skeleton tangled in fishing wire. That's the part that makes me doubt my own story, because now, looking back, I can't tell which things happened and which things I made up to explain the sounds. Did I really see that silhouette by the dock? Did I really hear someone whisper my name? Or did I just want to? It's strange how the mind works when it's alone. Sometimes I think the shipyard was empty. Other times I remember lights moving in the distance. Pale, yellow, and slow, like lanterns floating across the water. Maybe there were other workers there, and I just never met them. Or maybe I saw something else entirely. That's the problem with memory. It shifts, it corrodes, like metal left too long in salt air. Still, I stayed. Every night, even when the fog got thicker, even when the sea started to sound more like breathing than water, because I'd made a promise to finish the job. And maybe, deep down, because I thought I deserved to be there. I didn't know it then, but the shipyard wasn't abandoned. Something was waiting, and it had already learned my name. You ever try to convince yourself something didn't happen until it starts happening again? That's what the second week at the shipyard felt like. Every night, a little more wrong. The air got heavier, the fog thicker, and the whispers clearer. I'd tell myself I was hearing the wind through the cranes, but deep down, I knew wind doesn't say your name, and definitely not in a voice that sounds young. It started small. Footprints. The first time I almost missed them. Bare feet pressed into the thin film of salt water along the dock. Small prints. Too small for a man. Too delicate for any of the workers who should have been there. I crouched down, ran my hand over them, and they filled with water instantly, like the ocean was trying to swallow the evidence. I told myself it was a prank. Someone had to be screwing with me. But the deeper I went into the shipyard, the quieter everything got. No birds, no creaking metal. Even the generators felt muffled, like the whole world was holding its breath. Then, one night, I saw her. It was just past midnight. The fog was moving like smoke, and the docks looked like they were floating on clouds. I was doing my rounds when I noticed a shape standing in the dry dock. Tall shadows stretching from the floodlight behind me. She stood ankle deep in stagnant water, her hair plastered to her face, her arms hanging limp at her sides. I froze. She didn't move, didn't speak. "Hey!" I shouted, forcing my voice to sound braver than I felt. "You're not supposed to be here!" Nothing. I took one step forward, the sound echoing across the dock. The figure tilted her head slightly, just enough for the light to catch her face. Eyes wide open, mouth slack, skin pale as sand. And then she was gone. No splash, no footsteps, just empty water. I told myself I imagined it. I had to. Maybe it was fog refracting light. Maybe my brain misfired, but when I climbed down into the dock, I found something floating in the water, an old torn ribbon. Sea green, frayed at the ends. I kept it. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd prove she was real. Maybe I already knew she was. The next day, I searched the office, looking for anything. Records, logs, something to tell me who might have been here before. There was one ledger tucked behind a file cabinet, its pages swollen with damp. I flipped through it, dates fading to nothing, names blurred until one line stood out. Marin Lawn, dockhand, missing, July 1994. The ink bled where someone had underlined missing. I don't remember breathing for a full minute after that. The air just left. I kept telling myself it was coincidence. Maybe someone else wandered through here. Maybe those prints weren't hers. Maybe I didn't actually see her at all. I even tried talking out loud while I worked to drown the whispers. It helped for a while, until the third night. That night, I heard crying. Soft, broken sobs coming from beneath the dock. The kind of crying you try to muffle so no one knows you're there. I grabbed my flashlight and leaned over the edge, scanning the black water. Marin. I don't even know why I said her name. It just slipped out, like my tongue already knew it. The crying stopped. Then came the bubbles. Just a few at first, then dozens, breaking the surface in a circle right below me. I stumbled back, my flashlight slipping from my grip again, beams spinning across the planks. And in that split second of flickering light, I saw her face under the water, eyes open, lips blue, hair floating like seaweed. I ran. I don't remember reaching the cabin. I don't remember locking the door. I just remember the sound, the slow, deliberate knocking, 3 times, not frantic. Calm. From underneath the floorboards. I sat there until dawn, holding the ribbon in my hand, my breath fogging the window. The next morning, I told myself it couldn't have been real. I even laughed, said it out loud just to make it sound smaller. You didn't see anything, Elias. You're tired. You're hearing things again. Again. That word slipped out before I realized it. I froze because I'd told myself I left all that behind. The voices, the sounds that used to come before things went wrong. But maybe they hadn't stopped. Maybe they just moved with me. The 4th night, I found the water pump running even though I'd switched it off. A trail of wet footprints led from the dry dock to the office. I followed them with the flashlight, my chest tightening with each step. They ended at my door, bare, small and fresh, and then they vanished, not faded, not dried, gone, like whoever made them had been standing there a moment ago listening. That's when I started talking to her. Not out loud, not at first, just in my head. Questions I didn't want to ask out loud. What do you want? Why me? Sometimes the ocean answered. Sometimes it was just the wind. But one night, while I was recording the generator's hum trying to capture proof of something, the tape picked up a voice. Behind me, a whisper. You came back. It wasn't a question. I replayed it over and over until sunrise, every nerve in my body burning. And yet, even now, part of me wanted to believe it. Because when you've done something unforgivable, hearing someone, anyone, call your name feels like a kind of mercy. But the ocean doesn't forgive. It remembers, and Marin Lawn wasn't done remembering. They say isolation makes you hear things. But what if isolation just clears the noise long enough to let you finally hear what's always been there? That's how it started, the blurring. By the 3rd week, I couldn't tell when the nights ended and the mornings began. The fog swallowed the sun whole, and my clock stopped working on its own. The hands just froze at 12:03 midnight maybe, or maybe it never stopped being midnight after that. I started recording myself, audio logs like proof that I was still sane. Each night I'd sit by the generator and talk into my tape recorder. Day 12, I'd whisper, Maintenance check complete. Still no sign of anyone else. I wanted a record, something to keep me tethered. But when I played the tapes back, there was always another voice. Not loud, more like an echo layered beneath mine. I'd say, all quiet tonight, and underneath, barely audible, I'd hear it breathe. Liar. I deleted the first few recordings, but after a while, I stopped trying to hide it. It was part of the shipyard now, or maybe part of me. The wet footprints came back too. Only this time, they didn't lead to my door. They started from it. I woke one morning to find the office floor glistening, water pooling beneath my boots. The door was open just slightly and the air smelled like salt and rust. When I stepped outside, I saw it. The trail leading down to the dry dock. Same small bare prints as before. But this time, they weren't fresh. They were bleeding. I followed them anyway. I had to. The fog was so thick it swallowed my flashlight's beam within inches. I walked slow, each step echoing, the sound too loud in the emptiness. I thought about calling her name again, Marin, but I didn't trust what would answer. At the dock's edge, I found the rope ladder hanging into the pit. The water below shimmered dark and still. I should have turned back. But then I heard it again. That voice from beneath the water. Only now it wasn't crying, it was laughing. That laugh followed me down the ladder. The air grew colder the lower I went. My boots splashed into knee-deep water, and the flashlight flickered. The sound of dripping metal echoed all around, rhythmic, almost like breathing. The walls of the dock were slick with algae, and somewhere deeper, water was moving. Slow, deliberate, like something alive. And then I saw them. Wet handprints along the wall. Small. Pale. Leading into the maintenance corridor that ran beneath the dock. I didn't even know it existed until then. The hatch had always been sealed shut, but now it hung open, rusted bolts torn free. I remember whispering, "How?" Then the lights cut out. For a heartbeat, there was only black water and my own pulse thundering in my ears. And then a whisper, right next to me, Elias. It wasn't coming from behind or above. It was inside the corridor under the water. My body moved before my brain did. I dropped the flashlight and waded in, water climbing to my waist, then my chest. I tried to keep breathing, but the air was thick, heavy, and wrong. Every sound seemed too close, too personal. "Who are you?" I yelled, though I already knew. No answer, just that faint, warped laughter again, bubbling up from below. I turned to climb back out, but the ladder was gone. I swear it was gone. I shone my light where it should have been and saw only wet wall and shadow. That's when panic took over. I waded deeper into the corridor, trying to find another way out, but every few feet the water grew darker, thicker, colder. And then something touched my leg. Not seaweed, not debris, fingers. I screamed and stumbled forward, the water rising to my chin. I dropped the flashlight. It sank, beam fading into the murk. And in that fading light I saw her face, just below the surface. Eyes open, watching me. Marin. She didn't speak, didn't move, but behind her, in the darkness, shapes shifted. Other faces, distorted, unrecognizable, staring from beneath the ripples. I bolted. I don't remember how I made it back. Just that when I crawled out onto the dock, I was drenched, coughing, shivering, and the ladder was right there where it should have been, perfectly intact. That's when I realized the shipyard was changing me. I started hearing the whispers even when I was awake. They'd slip between my thoughts, finishing my sentences. Sometimes they sounded like Marin. Other times, they sounded like my sister. I didn't tell you about her, did I? Her name was Clara. She drowned when we were kids. At least that's what the police report said. But I still see her sometimes. Just a flash, the hem of her dress under the water. Maybe that's why I came here. Maybe I thought working by the ocean would make it easier to forget. But the ocean doesn't forget. It waits. That night, I replayed one of the recordings again, the one from the corridor. I wanted to prove to myself it wasn't real. But halfway through the playback, my own voice started. Arguing, I said, "Is anyone there?" And then my voice answered, "You shouldn't have come back." I dropped the recorder. I didn't sleep after that. The walls of the office pulsed with the sound of waves, the ceiling dripping even though it hadn't rained in days. My reflection in the window didn't move when I did. It just stared, water pooling around its feet. That's when I decided to end the recordings. But the last one, day 19, still plays in my head. I don't remember saying the words, but I hear them every time I close my eyes. She's not the one drowning. And then, static. I don't know what it means. I don't want to, but the tide's been higher lately, creeping closer to the office door each night. The whole shipyard groans now, like it's sinking inch by inch. I keep telling myself I'll leave. Tomorrow. Just one more night to pack my things. But when I stand at the water's edge and listen, I can hear them again. The voices under the tide, and somewhere in there, I swear I hear my sister whisper back, "Stay." You ever wake up and realize the world sounds heavier, like the air's soaked with something it shouldn't be? That's how the last night began. The rain wasn't falling anymore. It was pouring upward, or at least that's how it looked through the window, sheets of water sliding against gravity, dragging fog with them. Every surface dripped, every pipe moaned. The shipyard was drowning, and I was the only one left to watch. I don't even remember lying down the night before. One moment, I was staring at the recorder on my desk, promising myself I'd leave in the morning. The next, I was standing knee-deep in water, flashlight flickering, sirens blaring somewhere far beyond the fog. The tide had swallowed half the yard. The cranes leaned like drunk giants, their metal arms groaning as the wind shoved them. The ocean was no longer behind the docks. It was inside them. I told myself it was just a storm. But then I heard her voice again. "Elias." I turned toward the sound. She was standing on the dock, barefoot, soaked, hair plastered to her face. Marin, or what was left of her. Her eyes reflected the floodlights, hollow and endless. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. All I could do was whisper, "Why me?" She tilted her head. Then she smiled. Faint, almost kind. "You came back." The words hit like cold water. Back? I'd never been here before. At least I didn't think I had. But then the smell of salt filled my mouth. And suddenly, I wasn't in the shipyard anymore. I was on a pier. Years ago, the wood was slick, the night alive with the hum of crickets and the crash of waves. A girl's laughter, my sister's, echoed somewhere behind me. She was 14, all light and motion, spinning near the edge of the dock, saying, "Bet you can't catch me." I shouted something back, I don't remember what, and then she slipped. The splash, the scream, the silence after. I remember the flashlight falling from my hand, same as it always does. The beam spinning, catching her face for one terrible second before it vanished beneath the water. And then, me, standing there, doing nothing. No, that's not right. I didn't just do nothing. I took a step back. That's what I never told anyone. Not the police, not my parents, not even myself. I let her drown, because I was angry, because she was laughing when I wasn't. Because part of me wanted her to stop. And when the water closed over her head, I said her name once, just once, and then walked away. The sound of the waves snapped me back. The shipyard was shaking now, the storm howling like an animal. Marin, or maybe Clara, I couldn't tell anymore, was still standing on the dock, motionless, eyes fixed on me. "You're not her," I said. "You're not Marin," she didn't answer, just stepped closer, one bare foot pressing into the rising water. That's when the floodlights blew out. Darkness, thunder, a rush of wind that felt like breath against my ear. "You remember now." The whisper came from behind me, but when I turned, the water was moving on its own, shapes forming beneath the surface, hands reaching, pale faces breaking through for seconds before sinking again. I stumbled backward, tripping on a rope coil, my head slamming against the railing. The world spun, and in that dizzy blur I saw them, not ghosts, not strangers, me, dozens of versions of myself, half submerged, watching, their mouths open but silent. Each one looked older, thinner, more eroded, like time itself had been chewing on them. "Stop!" I shouted. "Stop, I get it, I get it." But the voices didn't stop. They rose in a single roar, waves crashing, whispering, crying, until one voice cut through the noise, clear and sharp. "You're the one who drowned, Elias." I dropped to my knees. The water reached my chest now, icy and rising fast. My lungs ached, my eyes burned. I tried to crawl toward the office, toward the light, but it was gone. Everything was gone except the sea. I remember looking up once more, trying to find the sky, but all I saw was her face hovering above the surface, calm and still, hair floating like ink. "I'm sorry," I said. "Please." She blinked slowly, almost tender. "Then come back." The water surged, dragging me under. Cold closed around my throat, my ears filled with the rush of current and static. I tried to fight, but something about it felt right, like returning to a place I'd been avoiding my whole life. When I opened my eyes underwater, I saw her clearly for the first time. Marin, Clara, both, neither. Her lips moved, but the sound came from inside my head. The ocean remembers what you bury, and then nothing. Silence. They found the shipyard 2 days later, half submerged. The storm had passed, but the place was ruined. Equipment overturned, cabins flooded. The Coast Guard report said they found my cabin empty, door open, recorder still running. The tape captured only static for the first hour. Then a voice, mine, soft, distant. She wasn't the one drowning. After that, the sound of waves, just waves, though if you listen closely, really closely, right near the end, there's a whisper, Elias.